podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Hello and welcome to a new podcast, The Paddock and the Pavilion with Stephen Wallace. In each show, Stephen will interview someone connected to the world of horse racing or cricket.
Hello everyone. On today's podcast, I have with me via Zoom in California, a former jockey and now film director, Nathan Horrocks. Welcome to the show, Nathan.
Hi, Stephen. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. We won't go into that at the moment, but I've only got one more day and I'm out from self-isolating, but I'm perfectly all right and I've had 2 negative tests and I feel 100%. So let's not talk about me, but how do we find a Yorkshireman in California?
God, I mean, it's been a long old journey getting here, really. It's, I've been here since September, actually, moved out here, to my wife got a new job and I came with her. And what I've done is all the stuff I've been doing in the UK around Equine productions and Jockey Cam. We've been trying to set that up here in the US. I mean, we've always had a little bit of work come from America over the past 5 years, but, through the Breeders' Cup. But what we wanted to do was, moving out here was really try and grow Equine productions and Jockey Cam and give the US fans the experience of what the UK and Europe fans have been having from our work over the last sort of 10 years, really. So it's been an enjoyable journey getting here, but it was actually nice to be back in the UK a couple of weeks ago because I came over to cover Royal Ascot, and it was fun to be back in the changing room with a few of the jocks and seeing some old faces, and because obviously a few of the it was a test event for the crowds being back, and it was really, really nice to see some old colleagues and some friends and catch up with some of those people. But I have missed the UK, but I do love it here. It's an amazing country, and California is such a beautiful state.
Just you mentioned about flying over. There can't be many people on these aeroplanes.
No, it's dire straits, isn't it? I was chatting to a couple of British Airways pilots while I was at Ascot, funny enough, and something's like, I think British Airways are losing something like 3 million a day, which is frightening, and these airplanes are just empty. It's such a bizarre feeling, really, flying back and forth, but I'm hoping that we get opened up soon, and a few of our English friends can come and see us, So that's what I'm looking forward to, because I'd love to show them this beautiful state that I'm living in.
So is California now a permanent home for you?
It is, yeah. I mentioned earlier, my wife, she teaches in San Francisco. She teaches. I can't remember what grade it is because I still work in old money, but they're 8 to 10 year olds. So that's who she teaches, and her daughter lives here with us, and my stepdaughter Amelia. So it's great that we've set up camp here, and it's definitely a permanent home for me. I love the outdoors, and the sun shines pretty much every day here in Northern California. It's very rare it gets cold and wet like the UK. I know a lot of my UK friends are very, very jealous of some of the photographs I get to take out here, and constantly winding them up, sending them these sunset pictures and stuff like that. So it's a beautiful place to live.
Yeah, well, don't mention the weather at the moment we've been having here. It's just been raining and keeping raining. So, but you're in the racing headlines at the moment for your film, The Fall, which hopefully you're going to tell us about when it's going to be released, but which focuses on the mental health of jockeys. Firstly, the burning question is, why did you make the film?
Well, I've got to go back a few years, really. In 2015, I went through a bit of a painful divorce, and it's funny saying that now because I'm as happy as can be right now. But at the time, it was a pretty tough thing that I went through, and I was just struggling with my own kind of mental health right now. And I don't want to sound like everybody's suffering with mental health these days, because they're not. It's just that there's different levels of it. Do you know what I mean? And I was really, really struggling for a while, and I mean, everyone knows that I was very heavy involved with a horse called Many Clouds, and after we lost him, he was kind of like my I kind of pinned my everyday, get up in the morning. He was the reason I was getting up every morning, really, to keep everything keep everything going. Even though, as from the outside, everyone was looking at me being successful as a film director, or running Equine, help running Equine production with my two business partners, Sam Fleet and Dave James. And Jockey Cam was going really well, but I was having a real battle with my own, my own state of mind. And after, a long time in therapy and stuff like that, I started writing this story. Basically, it was I've spent many a car journey with jockeys, and they've been good and bad car journeys. The good car journeys are when they've had a winner, they're driving home, they're in great spirits, and the day's gone smoothly. But I've also spent days in them car journeys with other jockeys, and also my own self, of that lonely drive home when things haven't gone quite right, and the phone call comes from the agent or the trainer. Owners aren't happy, they don't want you riding the horse anymore. And I've been there myself, but I've also witnessed it as well, and in many a car journey. And that's the stuff that the wider world don't get to see, because the important thing we all need to understand, that jockeys are supreme athletes first and foremost. But the other thing that we don't understand is, we see them as stars of our sport, so we think that they're fine financially and doing well in life. We see them as the superstars of racing. What we don't understand is they're freelancers. If they don't ride, they don't get paid, and that brings a certain amount of pressure if you're at a certain level of rider. Even at the top, that brings pressure, because you want to. If you're at the top, you still want to be riding them big races and them big winners. But even the guys, in the middle or even in the lower table of the jockeys list, they're always going to be struggling to make ends meet. And sometimes, because they're always chasing the next ride, because there's always somebody else to take your place, and that can be a frightening world to live in. And what I wanted to show is that can bring a whole world of pressure to an athlete when you're always chasing the next paycheck and making sure that not only the ride that you had that day is important, but the one you're going to be getting in the future. You're always trying to keep everybody happy. So you've constantly got to be showing happiness and professionalism in that world. So the only time they get to really let go of that is in the car journey home, because they can't really be showing it at home, and they definitely can't be showing it in front of their peers in the changing room. You've got to be on show all the time, and it's something. And they only
and even as you said about jockeys, the best jockeys probably win, 1 in 5, but the ordinary average jockey's probably winning 1 in 10, that sort of numbers.
Well, I mean, if you look at the strike rate of most jockeys, it's around about 9-10%. Now, if our favourite football teams were only winning 9% of their games, we wouldn't be following them very much, would we?
No.
And that brings, it brings a lot of pressure. That you're constantly getting beaten when you're performing, and I kind of wanted to show that. So writing this short story, I wrote it on my phone one morning when I was laid in bed, and it just it's just a very cathartic thing, really. And that then became a script. And I've never written a script before. We've done short scripts for like little TV commercials that we've done before, but nothing of this scale, really. And my English teacher would be turning in his grave knowing that Horrocks had written a script, because I was absolutely awful at school. I was always called out for being nothing but a dreamer, always looking out the window, really. So it was quite surprising this kind of came out of me. But I put this thing together, and I showed it to Paul Struthers of the Professional Jockeys Association, and he was immediately taken with it, because it was a completely different look at what horse racing is. You look at all the the famous films that have been made about horse racing. They're all
it's always
about
glory,
celebration. Yeah,
it's glory. It's
a glory story.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I love those films. I love those. The champions, the sea biscuits of the world, the secretariats, to me, they're sometimes a little bit unrealistic, you know, in some, because you've got to make it, you know, like a dreamlike story. But I wanted to show a different side of racing. I wanted to show a side of racing that I've seen and I still see, you know, when I'm doing my Jockey Cam work, I'm in the changing room on a regular basis. I can see those signs when someone's not having a good day. They don't quite show it to the rest of the world, but I recognise that person because that was me at that time as well, you see. So it was a real cathartic thing for me to get this story down. And Paul Struthers read it and said, "You've got to do something with this. You've got to get it like finished, or we've got to try and get it funded." And he offered, offered some money to pay for it, and it just wasn't enough to get it going. So we kind of pitched this thing around, and the Even Keel Foundation, which is a charity for men with mental health, was put together by a lady called Sam Hillier. And she said she'd help fund this as well, but it still wasn't quite enough because we wanted to do a really good job of this. And it's like building a house. You know, if you want to build a decent house, you've got to have the funding to make it. Do you know what I mean? It's a bit like that with making a film. Really, you know, they do cost a lot of money to make if you're going to do them properly. So lucky enough, Nigel Payne, who used to be chief executive at the Professional Jockeys Association, who is now trustee of the Sir Peter O'Sullivan Charitable Trust, he read the script and immediately said, "How much do you need to make this?" And I told him I needed a certain amount, and he was like, "Right, here's the money. Go and make it the best it can possibly be." And I mean, I remember immediately, nearly bursting into tears. Like someone believed in us to actually go and create this. And I think it's probably because of the background we've had, creating, award-winning documentaries like we've done with Many Clouds, and the Mark Johnson piece that we made about Mark's life. I think that gave credibility to us to actually go and physically go and make this. And lucky enough, people, Robert Bathurst got involved later on in the stage as well, where he got given the script, and
he's a big racing fan as well, isn't he?
He's a huge racing fan. He when we have phone calls, and we've had many of them leading up to making the fall, during the fall, and after the fall, we'll spend at least 15-20 minutes talking about horse racing. He is obsessed with it. He loves it. He loves everything that makes it tick. The characters, and he's a real fan, and it's lovely to kind of tell these kind of stories to someone that's just a sponge for all this stuff, So it was great actually to get him involved, and he helped me then develop the script a little bit wider, because obviously there was a skeleton there, but it did need some meat put on the bones of the story and some character development, because there's only actually 3 people that appear in this film.
And he's the trainer, isn't he, Robert Bathurst?
He plays the trainer. He's the voice that delivers the blow, really. And I'm not making the trainer to be the bad person in this at all, because what I'm trying to do is to show that the trainer's under pressure as well, because everybody is held accountable if a horse runs bad, really. But usually the last person it stops with is the jockey. They're the easier one to get rid of, really. And that can happen in racing, but it can also happen with trainers, where owners take horses away. They want to change stables. And I kind of wanted to show that in this film, really, that the trainer's under pressure as well. And he's got a difficult decision to make, because, he needs to say to the jockey, look, the owners don't want you anymore. And which is everybody's that's ever ridden in a race, the professional or amateurs has had that phone call at some point where they've just been told that they can't ride it again, So, and that's where Robert really, really helped me, because I've never directed actors before. I've made documentaries, but I've never really directed, talent in the way of forming a script and asking them to perform in some way. So that's where Robert became on and became co-director, and we shot the whole film in December, within 4 days, because we had a small window when COVID was actually let us, we were allowed to mix for a short time.
And it was filmed
And,
was it Ascot Racecourse, I read?
Ascot Racecourse, yeah. Ascot have been, they've been absolutely amazing with us. They were, really accommodating in letting us use the changing rooms there at Ascot, because that's where the film kind of starts and ends, really. And then we had a second day of filming where it's the long car journey of where this poor character Tom has his breakdown, really. And so we filmed that on the second day, and then the third day was we shot it in Lambourne at a friend's house of mine, where our main character arrives home. I won't give the plot away too much, but this is where the things amount, really, and it's the difficulty of the conversation he has with his partner about hiding all this stuff, because I think one thing we've got to understand is, these pressures that our athletes are under, and not just jockeys. This could be about a footballer, it could be about a cricketer. We are, as well as the pressures of sport, comes results, and with those results, we have social media, good or bad. When it's going great, everybody's a hero, but when things don't go right, that's where people on social media feel as though they have the right and the permission to abuse our athletes. And it's been painful to see some of the stuff that these guys receive. We actually use some real tweets and text messages in the film. I remember showing my wife the script, and she said, "You're going to have to tone the language down a little bit in this. It's a bit unrealistic, isn't it?" And I went, "No, these are actual tweets and text messages that were sent to jockeys." And she
last week on our podcast, Paige Fuller was explaining to me the tweets that she'd received and actually said some on the podcast. And for a young jockey, it brings, and especially in the environment we've been living in as well, with people in bubbles with other sports and in the COVID world, it really has brought it home, I think.
It has. I mean, we saw the Safi Osborne message that she got. I think it was through Facebook Messenger. I think it was that she received it. And, it wasn't Safi that brought it to our attention, because she gets this stuff on a regular basis, she told me, and she's actually not that bothered about it, and luckily she's not bothered about it. However, her dad saw it and it affected him, Now, that's what I'm trying to show. It's not just the athlete you're abusing. They have a wife, a husband, a mother, a father. They see this stuff, and it's, how would they feel, the people that send in this stuff, if someone was attacking their family in some way, and I think that's why we need to keep, we need to hold these social media platforms accountable. Government needs to start putting pressure on them, because I know for a fact that it's definitely affecting some of these athletes. It's not just social media that's affecting them; it's the pressures of the sport. But this can be a tipping point, and I think that's why I wanted to create this film, to show, that they're human beings. They're like all of us. They have real problems. They've got to pay the bills. They've got relationship struggles and all this stuff, all this normal stuff that we don't see. Then we look at sports stars and we think, oh yeah, they get paid a load of money and their lives are great, and we feel as though we have the right to attack them. And I just want to make sure that, no, they're human beings. We need to be kind, and we need to be kind always.
And we've had some tragic events in horse racing, in particular in the last 2 or 3 years as well.
Well, yeah, I mean, it was with the death of my really good friend James Banks, and I didn't know Liam Treadwell greatly. I mean, I knew him from working in the changing room, because we were kind of like different generations of riding. But I knew Liam, but I knew James really well. In fact, Tom Garner, and he was still a jockey over here in the US, but he rode in the UK for a long time. We shared a house, and James would often sleep on the couch on a Friday night, and we had some heavy conversations, really, because we were both going through similar things at the same time, but neither of us would really talk deep enough about where we were, but we kind of had an understanding of where we were. It was that unspoken word, really. And, you know, it's often, you know, you think you can try and help people, but, you know, he wasn't getting the help or didn't ask for help or whatever. And lucky enough, I was the one that did ask for help, and I've come through it to the other end, really. And unfortunately, James didn't. So that was pardon the language, the kick up the arse, really, for me to go and get this film made, because I wanted to make sure that everybody's aware of what these people are going through. And also, if someone is going through this, that they can watch it and say, oh yeah, that's me. And I can ask for help and get help, because the last thing we need is more athletes going through this and then, you know, ending their lives because they haven't had the right help.
And when will the film be released?
So we're just going through that at the moment. It's going to be released in the autumn. So we've got the broadcaster, but I'm just not allowed to announce it yet. So in the next week or so, we'll be able to announce who the broadcaster is and where you're going to be able to see it, because I want as many eyes to see this as possible. So it's going to be free to everybody to watch it, and you know, it'll be shown more than once, but it's going to be on TV, so free for people to see. But we've also entered the film into a number of film festivals around the world, you know, just to try and really you know, broaden the appeal of what we're trying to show, really. And I wanted to show it in front of a non-sporting, but in particular a non-horse racing audience, really. And we've been already accepted for 3 film festivals, in fact, and also it's just won Best Short Drama at the Indie Shorts Awards in Los Angeles. So we just got notification of that a couple of days ago. So we're really chuffed. It's already an award-winning piece, and I'm just itching now to tell everybody when we can actually, you know, when we can actually show them it, you know, because it's you know, it's not an easy piece to watch. It's you know, it's going to really. It's going to make a few people angry, a few people upset, and it's going to ask a lot of questions of themselves, you know. And you know, I need to take a hard look at how I'm treating somebody, and that's what I want it to do. I want it to get a reaction, really, and I'm really excited that we're going to be able to show it in the autumn to everybody.
Well, as an ex-jockey, you should have a good perspective of what it was like to be a jockey. And I just want to take you back now to your own beginnings in racing. Because you're born in Yorkshire, but you were raised in Kenya.
That's right. Yeah. I know, it's such a bizarre thing when I tell people that.
And now you're in California. Yeah.
Well, yeah. There was why were you in Kenya? And I was like, well, my dad was a jockey, and they were like, what? They had horse racing in Kenya? And I was like, yeah. You know, in the 70s, I mean, I think Kenya was like one of the main attractions for you know, the UK jockeys to go somewhere for the winter, because we didn't have all weather racing back then. So they would always go somewhere for the winter. And, you know, my dad said he often rode against like Lester Piggott and Willie Carson and people like that, you know, coming out to Kenya to ride. A bit of a busman's holiday for them all, I think, you know, while the winter months were being covered by jump racing in the UK. So, you know, yeah, growing up there was lovely, really. But we came back to the UK when I was 5, and moved to the horse racing town of Midland. So that's my original home, really. You know, that's what I call home. You know, is the racing town of Midland, and grew up there, and was never ever going to go into racing. Hated anything to do with racing. It just wasn't something I was into. I was into, you know, skateboarding and you know, BMXing and all the alternative things that you could be into, you know, and, you know, music, hip hop, all that sort of stuff. So racing as a 16-year-old when I was leaving school was something I was just not interested in. And my dad took me down to evening stables one evening and you know, said, you know, you got to have a job sometime. You know, you should think about horse racing as a career. And I remember just that one evening going down to evening stables with him, really, and just the connection with the horse. I kind of let all the other stuff that was making me think that horse racing wasn't very cool. You know, that it's just for old posh people. That's how I saw it as a 16-year-old, looking at how horse racing is marketed, and you know, and I'm, you know, can go on to that. That's how Equine Productions came about. But you know, I wasn't going to be involved in it, but it was the connection with the horse, really, that I found fascinating, really, and immediately got a job at George Moore's in Midland, and never really sat on a horse before, so learnt to ride and all that sort of stuff. And then after I was served a couple of years at George Moore's, went to Chris Thornton's and became conditional jockey for Chris, and did quite well for him. And then Mickey Hammond, offered me a job, and I worked for him for a few years, and that's where I kind of started and ended my jockey career, really. I think I rode about 60, 62, 63 winners in my 9-10 year career. Yeah,
I was going to say for listeners, you went to the British Racing School, I think, in 1994, and you rode your first winner. Was your first winner your first ride as well in December?
It was my second ride. Yeah, my dad always winds me up about it because he rode his first winner on his first ride. So yeah, so he thinks he's a little bit better than I was. But my claim to fame is, it was over hurdles. His was a flat race, so I think it's a little bit easier.
Yeah, much harder over hurdles, isn't it?
Yes.
And so your first winner was at Edinburgh, now Musselburgh.
Yeah, and if I was to have my first winner today, it would be a text message or a Facebook message or from family and friends. But then it was a fax. I got a fax through from Chris Fairhurst's yard where my dad was working. Well done, son. Sent all the way through to Musselburgh. Yeah, it was absolutely amazing. That this fax came through to Musselburgh office, and somebody came running in and said, "Oh, so your dad's just sent you this." I mean, it's just, it was such a special day. I mean, everybody will remember the first winner. Every jockey will do, because it's such a great feeling, and it's something that I'm constantly still trying to show a non-horse racing audience, or even a horse racing audience, really. That the fact that we can relate to pretty much every sport played, because we've all played most sports at an amateur level or just as kids, whether it be skateboarding to football or cricket or golf, whatever it may be, but not many of us can get to try riding a racehorse at 40 miles an hour, and to actually experience that is just like the best feeling in the world. It really is, whether it's riding a 5 furlong race or riding a 2-mile chase. It's that thing of working together with the equine athlete, is these two species working together for a common goal is to get past that winning line first, and when it happens, it's just the best feeling in the world. Honestly, it's hard to describe to people, really, what that feels like, especially working with an animal.
But you rode at the Cheltenham Festival, though, so why did you retire from race riding?
Well, for me, I just found it too hard, really. I just found the whole thing too hard, and I suppose that's probably why I've written this film. I just didn't enjoy the down days. I enjoyed the up days, but they were just too and far between, really. And the down days just became really hard. And nothing against Mickey Hammond, but he was a very driven character at the time. I speak to jockeys now when they that ride for him and say he's a very much changed character. But I remember at the time just like finding him very, very hard to work for, very demanding. And I just probably didn't have the, someone would call it backbone, I suppose. But I probably would have been better off being nurtured rather than, driven, really. And that's when I felt as though I was at my best, when someone would just give me free rein, really, rather than tie me down with either, instructions or whatever it may be. But I just stopped enjoying it, and went and worked for Mark Johnson for about 7 years. I mean,
I was going to say, you got to ride some very good horses. Days. You got to ride some very good horses there. Attraction,
Sharmadel, Double Trigger, Yavana's Pace, Fruits of Love. I can go on. Honestly, it was amazing. It was amazing. I just loved it, and I loved riding the 2-year-olds. It was a really, really fun time being at Mark's, and it was just when Mark was gone from really 50 to all of a sudden 120 horses, because all of a sudden there was this big boom in, he bought another yard, and you could expand the yard, and it was really, really exciting to see how that whole business developed, really, and how people don't really give him a lot of credit, but he's actually changed the way the sport is run these days, because you can have these big numbers because of the way I mean, if anybody's seen the documentary made on him, he says a famous part in it where he says, I had my McDonald's experience where, you know, if you look at every McDonald's, they're all run the same. Well, yeah, that's how I'm going to set up, you know, the way we work with the racing yard. You know, rather than it being training individual horses, they're all run by a different manager, you see, and they're just given the tools to do their job. And it was fascinating to see how all that worked. So I really enjoyed working for Mark. And then lucky enough, a good friend of mine who you had on the podcast, Josh Appiaffi, was working for Betfair at the time, and said, look, you know, the riding out thing isn't going to last forever. You know, there's this job coming up at Betfair. Do you want to apply for this job? And I did, and worked for Betfair for around about 6 to 7 years, and loved it. You know, it was great to see what that other side of racing we don't get to see. You know, because it feels like a bit of us and them really within horse racing. If you're in the actual mechanics of horse racing, you know, on the horse side, the horseman side of things, you know, the betting side of things can kind of be a little bit like alienated. It's a bit of us and them really, but now seeing it from both sides, they both really work well in unison. And obviously we, you know, don't want to go into the prize money thing, but you know, if we start working together as one, I could see us all flourishing and doing well. But it was really nice to see how that world worked, and it also gave me the opportunity to, you know, while I was working for Betfair, to start this idea of you know, Equine Productions, and in 2012 it was launched, and in 2013 I left Betfair and we did this thing full time. It's been a crazy journey, really.
But you also mentioned earlier that you rode Many Clouds, used to ride out him who won the 2015 Grand National. So were you riding out at the same time as you were working for Betfair then?
I was, yeah. No, you know, my boss loved the fact that I was still very much involved in racing, and I would go into Oliver's to get my horse fix before I went off to work every day. And Oliver was very kind enough to put me on this gangly gelding that had won at Wetherby a couple of weeks earlier, and for some reason, me and Old Clouds, we just got on well. You know, because he was quite keen. He was quite a keen horse, and for some reason, he used to switch off every now and again for me. So I think Oliver quite liked that, and he kept me on him. And you know, it was great. You know, I didn't expect him to be the horse he became. I know he felt like a nice horse because I've ridden some nice horses. You know, coming from Mark Johnson's, I didn't really ride some great horses like that in my riding career. But, you know, I could tell what a good horse felt like. And, you know, he had a real engine and a great desire to race as well, you know, especially when you put him upside another horse, he would really compete, you know. So it was fantastic, that journey I had with him. And it also sparked our film careers, really. You know, when Dave James, Sam Fleet and myself got together to create Equine Productions, this was all in the journey of me riding Many Clouds, and we started documenting the horse, you know, very early on, just using him as a guinea pig for certain things like Jockey Cam and you know, trainer promo films and stuff like that. And he was a huge part of getting us launched, really. And you know, I really enjoyed that journey with that horse, and Oliver and Tanya Sherwood. You know, it was a really glorious time.
And it became an award-winning film, the Many Clouds.
It did, yeah. We called it Many Clouds, the People's Horse, because he pretty much became the people's horse, really. I mean, I know it's been battered around a lot. You know, you say the same about an Able now, I suppose, and Desert Orchid, and you know, horses like that, because they do take a character of their own, really. You know, because the people embrace them and take them for what they are. They're not owned by the owner or the trainer and the jockey anymore. It's owned by the public, really. But he definitely became that because you know, I think he won the Racehorse of the Year award 2 years in a row, you know, and that's voted by the public, which it says it all in itself, really. And we created this documentary not long after his death. We just had so much footage of him. I thought I needed to tell a story about him, really. So we just put this 13-minute documentary together. It's actually on YouTube if people want to go and see it.
Yeah, I've watched it. It's well worth watching, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, you know, it's just a short look at like how he started his career, and then, you know, and unfortunately how he ended his career. But I still say to this day that you know, seeing him beat Thistlecrack that day, you know, there's a great photograph of him with his ears pricked after the line, you know, and then unfortunately, you know, like moments later, he he passed away, which was, God, that was a really, really tough day to deal with. And but I'm so glad I was part of that journey. So glad that we made that film, and then we took it to New York, to a film festival in New York, and it was great to show a non-racing audience that film, and then it won best international director. So I'm really, really proud of that, and my favourite moment was after we won. I ran outside onto the streets of New York to ring Oliver Sherwood. He wasn't over happy about it because of the time difference, but once I told him we'd won, the pair of us were bawling our eyes out on the phone to each other. It was just a great moment, really, because the fact that he still wasn't with us, but was still winning hearts and minds. Because I think that's what's the main thing about this whole sport, really, Stephen, is they touch our hearts and our souls, these animals, and we people outside the sport just don't understand why we do this sport. But we just got to open our door a bit more ajar so we can let the non-racing world in, so they can see why we do this and why we love them so much, and why it's such a great sport to be involved with.
Well, it's clear from what you've been saying and reading about you like telling stories. So, but how? And you've mentioned that Equine production started in 2012. But how does an ex-national hunt jockey become a film director?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. I mean, I think what it is, I'm a huge fan of documentaries myself. Anyway, I drive my wife mad watching stuff on Netflix, and particularly music documentaries. And I've seen that thing of the making stuff in your bedroom culture. We make music in our bedrooms now. We don't go to a big studio and make them. Like now, I'm talking to you in I think it's your living room. You're doing a podcast. We're able to do this sort of stuff now. Years ago, we'd have had to gone to rent a nice radio station, and that's because the internet, really. It came about. What was it, 2010? Where YouTube was launched, and you could start making your own things, and you didn't have to go to film school. You could do it yourself. And I just had the drive and that teacher called me a dreamer, but I am a dreamer. And I dreamt of making this stuff as a very early kid. But I just, growing up in North Yorkshire, you don't go to film school. You don't do that, You go to be a builder or a farmer. I went into racing. So I wanted to mix my two loves, which was horse racing and the film. And lucky enough, the internet that brought all this homemade stuff out, you were able to buy a cheap digital camera and make it yourself. We're doing it now on our mobile phones. My stepdaughter's on TikTok every day. She creates her own, and that's how this whole stuff is become. We've become the creators, and that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to create content that showed the racing world in a better way than it was being shown, that anybody can be involved, and also that it can be exciting. It's not just about the betting, and it's not just about the result. It's about the journey and the story, and that's what I've always wanted to. Do. And lucky enough, like bumping into my two business partners, Dave James and Sam Fleet, we were enabled, the three of us, to do that and set it up and start creating some amazing content that still gets shown now. And we're still heavily involved in telling stories, and it's something that we'll continue doing till I'm a good age, because I haven't lost the passion for it.
Well, I'd recommend anyone to watch some of the videos that I've found on YouTube that Equine Productions have made. And also, you mentioned it earlier about Jockey Cam. Was that your idea, or how did that come about as well?
Yeah, I mean, Jockey Cam's not a new thing. I mean, in the 80s, they were putting cameras on the jockeys on the BBC, for the Grand National. But they were
because Richard Pittman been on this podcast. He told me about this massive thing. It was like on his head that was so heavy.
Yeah, I mean, it is. They were getting paid danger money to wear this thing. Do you know what I mean? It was, you wouldn't get away with it now with health and safety rules now, because hence the reason we've had to go through what we've gone through. But, in the 80s, they were using that, but it was so heavy, unsafe to wear, if it had a fall with that, he probably would have hurt himself. So I think the thing for me was, being a big sports fan myself, and in particular motorsport, a lot of people try and compare horse racing with football in some way. I don't know why, but I always compare us to, like how Formula One is run, really. We have the same thing. We have stewards and, start and a finish line. And, we can look at how Formula One has developed as a sport and as a platform for people to watch. And, the onboard camera has really opened everybody's eyes that, oh my God, how dangerous that looks. Do you know what I mean? So when I was riding, I've had it myself, where I've been abused for, what the hell were you doing on that horse? Or, why didn't you do this? And it's hard to show somebody from the camera angles that we have been using racing, because it doesn't show everything. So I wanted to show from the point of view of the rider and show the excitement of what it's like to be a rider. Hence, I was saying earlier, we've played a lot of, many people have played sports at different levels, so we can kind of relate to them, but not everybody can relate to riding a highly tuned thoroughbred at 40 miles an hour and making those split decisions. So I think the thing was I wanted to create something where we could show the public how these athletes work. And we wanted to create something that was safe to wear. And we also wanted to create something that could show from a certain angle what it's like to ride in these races. So that's how kind of Jockey Cam came about, really. And we were very lucky to have it on the first weekend we launched Jockey Cam on Channel 4. Actually, it was at the Grand National in 2015, and it was an absolute blessing in disguise. We were lucky enough to have it on Many Clouds when he won the Grand National, and that was it. Then we were away then, and we've since then taken it around the world. We've taken it to the Breeders' Cup here in America. We've taken it to Australia, Melbourne Cup, Saudi Cup, France, and the Arc. It's been fantastic to actually show the pictures, but not only showing the pictures, but showing it live. There's nothing like watching it live from the rider. And my only frustration is sometimes the director that works for ITV, whether it be, because they change directors, is I just wish they cut to it live sometimes in the race, because it's such a thrilling thing to see. They'll cut to it, walking into the stalls or going down to the start or whatever, but and they normally use it just for replays. But to actually physically watch it happening from a rider as it's happening is a really, really thrilling thing to see, especially when they make a major move to win the race or whatever it may be, because it is a really thrilling thing to see.
Yeah, it really shows the tactics of a jockey and shows where he might have to move to and does move to, and where he gets shut off. It really brings home the thrill of racing and the speed they're going when you're actually seeing it through the jockey's camera.
Exactly, yeah, and that was the whole point, really. I wanted to show the public like what it's like, because it's the nearest thing we can physically do is put the camera. And the great thing is, it's been embraced fantastically by all the jockeys and trainers and owners. I mean, in the sport itself, but it's not cheap to put this stuff on a racetrack, because racetracks are really big areas to fill. So for us to get a signal from this small, tiny transmitter that we've had to develop so it's safe if they do have a fall, is not a cheap thing to do. So it is expensive for ITV to provide Jockey Cam, just because of the manpower and the amount of equipment we use. Because people just think, it's just a camera on the jockey's head, but it's not that. It's the infrastructure that we have to put in around the track to get this pictures from this rider to help the world see it, really. So things are moving, technology is moving faster and faster all the time. So hopefully it can become more cheaper, and then there'll be a day where we'll see every runner from the Grand National, not just one camera. It'll be every rider, and you'll be able to pick which rider you want to ride with, or and all that sort of stuff. So we're really excited about where the technology is going, but we're just so glad that we've been the kind of pioneers, really, of making sure that it gets seen on a regular basis around the world, really.
Well, it certainly adds to the coverage. And what other plans of Equine, what other projects have you got lined up, say, in the next 12 months?
Well, there's one we're working on at the moment, and we can't really say a lot because we're just pitching it to a couple of major platforms. But we've been following Oisin Murphy and Andrew Balding over the last year and a half, telling a story of horse racing. So we're really excited by what we've captured. As your listeners can't see, but I've got a smile from ear to ear right now about what we've got. I'm so excited about this story that we're going to tell, and I want to do more of this stuff. It's like The Fall. The Fall, when I wrote it, it's actually a scene to a larger film, a larger story. So I've really got a thirst for this stuff now, telling these bigger stories rather than just these short promos. And I really want to start, bringing horse racing to the forefront of how this stuff is seen. But I want to show a reality to it as well. I want to show the credibility of what horse racing is about. I love the fact that we do make films like Dream Horse and Seabiscuit, and we mentioned it earlier, Champions, but sometimes they're a little bit unrealistic. I want to show the real people, the real sport in a light that can really inspire fans, like the Drive to Survive series has done for Formula One. It's been a huge success, that, and that's the type of thing that we want to go and make, really.
Well, Oisin Murphy's a fantastic communicator with his own videos that he does on his mobile phone in the car on the way home. So he must be great to actually film.
He is. He's been brilliant at giving us access. And I think there's two things there. It's credit to the person that Oisin Murphy is, but maybe also the credit to the people that we are, because we're cemented in this world of horse racing. We're not here to, not that there's anything to dig up, but we're going to be careful with the story that we're telling. We're going to tell it in a right and in a proper way. So I think, if anything, that we want to all the jockeys that are riding in the current day are all aware that they need to be a little bit more engaging and a bit more proactive with the sport, selling the sport, because that's what pays them. If the sport doesn't survive, they don't survive. So we've all got to work together to promote the sport. And lucky enough, we've got people like Oisin Murphy, Frankie Dettori, Tom Marquand, Holly Doyle. I mean, I could go on. The Ortiz brothers here in the US. Craig Williams in Australia. I can go on, because they're all getting it now. They're seeing themselves as athletes and the stars of the sport, and they're helping us as a company sell what we're all enjoying, which is the horse racing as a product and an enjoyable entertainment, medium to spread amongst the masses. I mean, when I met my wife, she was not a horse racing fan. She said, "Isn't horse racing cruel?" And I'm like, "No, you've been given the wrong information." Taking her to the stables, in Lambourne. She's like, "Why don't we see all this stuff?" And I'm like, "Well, there you go. We need to be better at it. We need to show the love and the care that our equine athletes get, and our human athletes get. We need to be better at that and promote the sport in a new and engaging way."
Well, hear to that. Best of luck with that project. More importantly, the best of luck with your film, The Fall, which, as you said, is coming out in the autumn, and it's going to be free for all of us to watch. Really looking forward to seeing it. And thank you very much for sparing your time and being on the Paddock and the Pavilion.
Thank you, Stephen. It's been a pleasure, and I look forward to seeing everybody's reactions to The Fall, because I'm really proud of what we've created, and it's been a huge team effort to get this film made. In particular, from the PGA, Even Kill Foundation, and Nigel Payne at the Sir Peter O'Sullivan Charitable Trust. I'm sure it's something Peter would have enjoyed, because that foundation was set up to help the sport stay alive and have a legacy, really. And I'm hoping that this is going to be a start of that.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Courtesy of Equine Productions, Nathan has allowed me to play the official trailer of The Fall.
Beacon of Hope turns for home with Habitat in the black and white colours, stalking in second. His rider looks very confident.
Thank you for listening to The Paddock and the Pavilion. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and now on Instagram at The Pad and Pav. Don't forget, if you like the show, please do leave us a rating and review.
Sports Social Podcast Network.
For the best TV viewing experience, witness the coziest maroons, the most vibrant and brightest moons, the eeriest and darkest tombs, and radiant and vivid hues in any type of room with the Neo QLED and OLED TVs by Samsung. We're supposed to say Samsung, but that didn't rhyme, so you're welcome. Samsung, more wow than ever.